It all happened faster than anyone could have imagined. Just 5 minutes ago, the world learned something that seemed impossible, yet there it was in black and white. Prince William had confirmed a piece of news that would shake the royal family to its core. Prince Harry, the once beloved younger son of Prince Charles, had been stripped of all royal titles and privileges. He was removed entirely from the line of succession. For some, it was an incomprehensible betrayal. For others, it was a long time coming. But for everyone watching, it was a moment that changed everything. Instantly, irrevocably, and publicly. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine for a second growing up in the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace, where history, tradition, and ceremony are more than just words. They are the very fabric of your life. You are told from day one that your role is defined, your path set, and your duty is to the crown. Now, imagine that the path you thought was yours for life has suddenly been erased. That's exactly what Harry faces today. Titles, privileges, the sense of belonging to one of the most famous families in the world, gone. And the world is watching. The story of Harry and William is often told as a tale of brotherhood, of two princes bound by blood and by duty. But beneath the public smiles and shared appearances, tension had been simmering for years. Rumors of disagreements, private disputes, and ideological differences have long circulated in the media, whispered in corridors, and speculated upon endlessly by royal watchers. Yet nothing hinted at a moment like this. Nothing suggested that the bonds of family could be broken so publicly, with consequences so severe. So why now? Why would William make such a drastic confirmation at this moment in time? Some insiders suggest that timing was everything, a strategic move to assert stability and control within the monarchy. Others believe it was an emotional breaking point, a reaction to events that had finally pushed William beyond tolerance. And then there are those who claim that external pressures, public opinion, political expectations, and media scrutiny forced William's hand. Whatever the reason, the statement has left the world questioning everything about the royal family's future. But let's step back for a moment. The stripping of titles is not just a symbolic gesture. It carries deep personal and legal ramifications. It's one thing to be criticized by the public. It's another to have your identity within your own family stripped away, to have your official role erased from centuries of tradition. Harry, once a prince with access to wealth, security, and influence, is suddenly a private citizen in the eyes of the monarchy. What does that mean for his daily life? His relationships? His children? And perhaps most importantly, what does it say about the bond between brothers, a bond that was once thought unbreakable? To understand the gravity of this moment, it's important to remember the trajectory that led here. Harry was not always the outsider he has come to be portrayed as. He was the adventurous, compassionate younger son who captured the public's heart. Stories of his charitable work, military service, and personal generosity have painted him as a man dedicated to making a difference. But over time, his choices, particularly his marriage to Meghan Markle, his move to the United States, and his increasingly public criticism of the royal family, created tensions that could no longer be contained behind palace doors. Every interview, every media appearance, every public statement became a brick in a wall separating him from the institution he was born into. And now, that wall has become a gate, one that has slammed shut behind him. The consequences are immediate and profound. Security protocols that once surrounded him are now altered. Titles that once identified him as a prince are no longer his to use. Public engagements, privileges, and ceremonial roles are rescinded. And the line of succession, the roadmap to the throne that defines the British monarchy, now excludes him entirely. It's a level of ostracization rarely seen in modern royal history, and one that will have ripple effects for decades to come. But perhaps the most astonishing part of all this is the speed with which the announcement was made. In an era where royal announcements are often delayed, carefully curated, and meticulously prepared for public consumption, this came like a bolt from the blue. Within minutes, news outlets across the globe were reporting, speculating, and dissecting every detail. Social media erupted. Public forums flooded with questions, opinions, and outrage. And in the middle of it all, Harry, who has spent years trying to forge a path for himself outside the constraints of the monarchy, suddenly finds that path blocked in ways he could not have imagined. The reaction is not just global, it's intensely personal. For royal enthusiasts, it is a shocking betrayal of tradition. For historians, it is an unprecedented moment in modern monarchy. And for the general public, it is a drama that reads like fiction, yet unfolds in real time before their eyes. One can only imagine what Harry must feel at this very moment. Confusion, anger, grief, perhaps even disbelief. To be cut off from the very institution that shaped your identity and defined your life is a psychological blow few could endure. And yet, there is another layer to this story, one that is rarely discussed in public commentary. The relationship between William and Harry is not just brotherly. It is also political, strategic, and deeply intertwined with the survival of the monarchy itself. William, as the heir apparent, carries the burden of ensuring stability, tradition, and continuity. Harry, by contrast, has become a figure of controversy, challenging conventions and attracting media scrutiny that sometimes borders on scandal. In this light, the decision to remove him from the line of succession can be seen not just as personal, but as an act of preservation for the institution. The irony is stark. The very brother William grew up with, shared secrets with, and loved, has become a liability in the eyes of the monarchy. Now, let's address the public curiosity. The burning question everyone wants to know: what happens next? What will Harry do without his titles, privileges, and official royal identity? How will he navigate a world in which he is no longer recognized as a prince by the very institution he was born into? And most importantly, how will this affect his family, particularly Meghan Markle and their children, who have already been thrust into a highly scrutinized public spotlight? There are clues, though they are scattered and incomplete. Insiders suggest that Harry may pursue private ventures, philanthropic work, or media deals that maintain his public presence without requiring royal approval. Others hint at potential legal battles over estates, finances, and security arrangements. Meanwhile, royal experts predict that William will consolidate his influence, seeking to manage public perception and safeguard the monarchy from further controversy. The tension between these two powerful figures, brothers bound by blood, yet divided by circumstance, sets the stage for an unfolding drama that may rival anything seen in royal history. But here's the twist you might not see coming. Stripping Harry of titles does not just affect him. It sends a message to the public, to other royals, and to anyone watching the intricate dance of power within Buckingham Palace. It is a demonstration of authority, control, and consequences. It is a reminder that tradition, duty, and loyalty are not just abstract ideals. They are enforceable realities. And yet, paradoxically, it also exposes the fragility of these ideals. One moment, Harry is a prince with a role defined by history. The next, he is a private citizen navigating an uncertain future. The shock, the drama, and the human cost are undeniable. And so, as the world grapples with this unprecedented announcement, questions abound. How did we get here? Were there warning signs no one recognized? Was this inevitable, or was it a choice made in the heat of the moment? And perhaps most intriguingly, what is the next move for Harry? A man who has always been in the public eye, yet now finds himself excluded from the very system he was born into? It all started with a statement that no one expected, yet everyone would remember. The words came from Prince William himself, calm, deliberate, and unmistakably final. 5 minutes before the world even had a chance to react, the confirmation was out. Prince Harry was stripped of all royal titles and privileges, removed entirely from the line of succession. For years, royal watchers had speculated, debated, and theorized about the tension between the brothers, but nothing prepared anyone for this. Imagine this scene. Buckingham Palace, normally a place of ceremonial precision and quiet dignity, suddenly buzzing with urgency. Courtiers scurrying, advisors whispering, legal teams coordinating. Reporters on the edge of their seats, cameras trained on every entrance, expecting a statement at any second. And then it comes. A clear, concise declaration. Harry's official status has been revoked. The world is stunned. The initial shock is visceral. Social media explodes in seconds. Hashtags trending worldwide. Memes, outrage, speculation, and support flood the platforms. News anchors struggle to articulate the gravity of the moment. Editors scramble to reformat headlines. Within minutes, the story has gone viral, not because of speculation, not because of rumor, but because of a single, undeniable confirmation from the heir to the throne. The younger prince who once captured hearts as the charming, rebellious son of Diana and Charles is suddenly an outsider. But why was this announcement made now? What precipitated this unprecedented confirmation? Some insiders point to a growing sense of urgency within the palace. William, facing increasing scrutiny over the monarchy's stability, may have seen no alternative. Others suggest that Harry's public statements, media appearances, and personal ventures outside royal approval created an image that the monarchy could no longer tolerate. And then there's the personal dimension. The complicated web of sibling relationships, loyalty, resentment, and disappointment that underlies the most famous family in the world. The timing is crucial. The monarchy is under pressure from multiple directions: public opinion, media narratives, political expectations, and historical precedent. Any sign of weakness or internal disagreement could be amplified beyond control. William, as the heir apparent, carries the weight of preserving not only his own future as king, but the reputation and continuity of the entire institution. Stripping Harry of his titles is more than an act of personal judgment. It is a calculated decision to protect the crown, to enforce discipline, and to assert control over a situation that had become volatile. For Harry, the personal cost is immense. Titles are not just ceremonial. They are symbols of identity, responsibility, and belonging. The privileges they confer, financial security, formal roles, ceremonial duties, are part of the framework that defines a royal life. To have them removed is to be severed from the family narrative, from the institution that shaped your identity from birth. Imagine growing up in a world where your every move is public, your every word analyzed, and suddenly being told, in effect, that your role no longer exists. The psychological impact is profound, and the public sees only the surface: the titles stripped, the privileges revoked, the headlines screaming betrayal. At the same time, the public reaction is both instantaneous and deeply divided. Loyalists express shock and sadness. Critics argue that Harry's actions had made this inevitable. Social media becomes a battlefield, with hashtags supporting and condemning the younger prince. Memes circulate portraying Harry as both victim and rebel. Media outlets dissect every angle, every potential consequence, and every historical parallel. And in the midst of it all, the palace remains a controlled storm of strategic communication, attempting to manage perception while maintaining authority. But the emotional core of the story lies in the relationship between William and Harry. The two brothers, once inseparable in public perception, now stand on opposite sides of a chasm created by years of tension, disagreement, and unspoken grievances. Childhood memories of shared games, private jokes, and mutual protection contrast sharply with the reality of public separation and official censure. It is a human drama layered beneath the ceremonial pageantry, a story of loyalty, love, and ultimately, betrayal. William's announcement, though formal, is laden with emotional weight. It signals more than just a legal adjustment. It communicates disappointment, disapproval, and the enforcement of boundaries that have been repeatedly tested. Every word, every inflection, is a reminder that royal privilege is conditional, not simply a birthright, but a responsibility that carries with it expectations, duties, and adherence to tradition. Harry, in stepping outside those bounds, has triggered a response that few outside the palace walls could fully comprehend. Meanwhile, speculation about Meghan Markle's role intensifies. Some argue that her influence, combined with Harry's public media presence, contributed to a perception of disruption within the royal family. Others caution against assigning blame, noting that the dynamics are far more complex than any single individual's actions. Regardless, the narrative is already forming. William as the protector of tradition, Harry as the renegade prince navigating life outside royal constraints. The contrast is stark, and the world cannot look away. Legal and ceremonial implications abound. Being removed from the line of succession is not a mere formality. It changes inheritance rights, official standing, and public recognition. Security details, previously coordinated around royal protocol, are recalibrated. Public engagements, appearances, and charitable involvements now carry a different significance. Even Harry's children, previously recognized as part of the succession line, are indirectly affected, though the extent of that impact is still being analyzed. In short, nothing in Harry's public or private life will remain untouched by this decision. Yet there is a human element that transcends titles and privileges. Beyond the public spectacle lies a man grappling with a profound sense of exclusion. The emotional impact, feelings of isolation, frustration, and perhaps betrayal, is real and immediate. Harry has always been under intense scrutiny, but now the stakes are higher than ever. He must navigate a life in which the structures that defined him are suddenly gone, relying on personal resilience, public perception, and private support networks to survive. The contrast between public image and private reality has never been more stark. And while the palace projects calm and order, insiders reveal the storm brewing behind closed doors. Courtiers, advisors, and family members navigate tense discussions, legal reviews, and strategic planning. Every statement, every interaction is scrutinized for potential impact. Rumors swirl about heated private conversations, midnight meetings, and attempts to anticipate public reaction. It is a tightly choreographed dance, one designed to maintain authority while mitigating fallout. The global implications cannot be understated. News outlets from London to New York, Tokyo to Sydney report on the story with urgency. Analysts weigh in on television, radio, and digital media. Social media explodes with commentary, speculation, and debate. For many, it is a moment of fascination, a drama unfolding in real time with stakes that feel both personal and historically significant. The narrative is being written in public, and every viewer becomes part of the conversation. Yet, even as the story spreads, questions remain unanswered. How did we get here? Were there warning signs no one recognized? Was this a decision made in response to cumulative actions, or a sudden judgment in reaction to a specific event? And most importantly, what does this mean for Harry's future, both personally and professionally? These questions hang in the air, unanswered but tantalizing, compelling audiences to stay engaged, to follow the story chapter by chapter. As we look ahead, it becomes clear that this announcement is only the beginning. Behind the headlines are secrets, strategic maneuvers, and emotional decisions that have never been made public. There are private confrontations, strategic countermoves, and decisions that could redefine the monarchy for years to come. Every detail, every nuance will matter. Every choice, every reaction could escalate or resolve the situation in ways the world has yet to imagine. And the most shocking revelation of all, the next steps are already being planned. While the world reacts in real time, Harry, William, and the palace staff are quietly strategizing for what comes next. Media strategies, legal considerations, and personal negotiations are underway, setting the stage for a drama that will unfold over months, perhaps years. Every headline you read today is merely the first chapter in a story that promises to be far more complex, emotionally charged, and historically significant than anything we have seen before. It's one thing to hear news in the media. It's another to witness it unfold behind the velvet curtains of Buckingham Palace, where every word, every gesture, and every glance carries weight far beyond the room itself. In this story, the private confrontation between Prince William and Prince Harry is the moment that defines everything that follows, the emotional and political epicenter of the royal drama. The tension in that room was palpable, though none outside could see it. Royal aides, trained to anticipate every movement, describe an atmosphere thick with unspoken words. Imagine two brothers who grew up side by side, shared childhood adventures, confided secrets, and relied on one another for support. Suddenly facing each other not as family, but as opposing forces. There was history in every corner of that room. Portraits of ancestors who endured their own betrayals, ceremonial artifacts representing centuries of monarchy, and the very walls themselves, heavy with expectation. The confrontation likely began quietly, almost cautiously. William, bearing the weight of his future role as king, approached the discussion with a mix of authority and sorrow. He had made the decision to confirm Harry's removal from the line of succession and to strip him of his titles, a choice that was both personal and institutional. Every word he spoke had to convey the gravity of the situation without igniting outright conflict, though the tension was inevitable. Harry, on the other hand, faced the announcement with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and rising frustration. For him, the palace had always been both home and cage. He had sought freedom, autonomy, and a life less constrained by royal protocol. Yet here, in this intimate and private space, those desires collided directly with centuries of tradition and the expectations placed upon him. The very brother he once trusted was now the enforcer of consequences he could scarcely imagine. Accounts from insiders suggest the dialogue was intense. Words were measured but laden with emotion. William may have tried to balance firmness with empathy, explaining the reasoning behind the decision while acknowledging the personal toll it would take. Harry's responses, though restrained publicly, were likely a torrent of pent-up frustration, a mixture of grief over lost status, anger at perceived judgment, and perhaps even fear for what lay ahead. It is said that in moments like these, the smallest details speak volumes. A clenched fist, a deliberate pause, a tightened jaw. These are the gestures of conflict that reveal what words sometimes cannot. Courtiers, advisors, and those present reportedly observed every nuance, aware that history was being written in real time. Every glance, every tone of voice, every hesitation carried meaning. Even the act of sitting or standing became a subtle negotiation of power. Underlying the confrontation is a deeply personal narrative. This is not just about titles, succession, or privilege. It is about identity, loyalty, and the emotional bonds between brothers. Harry's sense of self, shaped by a lifetime in the palace and the shadow of his older brother, collided with William's perception of responsibility and duty. Every shared memory of school days, family vacations, and private jokes now stood in stark contrast to the public roles each man must fulfill. The irony is bitter. The brother who once promised protection and camaraderie has become, in effect, the gatekeeper of consequences. As the conversation progressed, tension reportedly escalated. William may have reminded Harry of the historical significance of their family's legacy, emphasizing that public perception, duty, and protocol cannot be ignored. Harry, feeling misunderstood and constrained, may have responded with frustration, challenging both the reasoning and the fairness of the decision. Some insiders suggest that there were moments of near silence, charged with unspoken emotion, as both men weighed their words carefully. There is also the role of Meghan Markle in this private narrative. While not physically present, her influence and decisions were likely part of the subtext. William, conscious of public opinion and historical precedent, may have viewed Harry's alignment with Meghan as part of the problem, a deviation from tradition that contributed to the perceived need for decisive action. Harry, in turn, may have seen his wife's presence and support as a shield, a reason to defend his autonomy and challenge the limits imposed upon him. The result is a complex triangle of loyalty, love, and tension that adds layers to an already explosive situation. Legal considerations were intertwined with the emotional drama. William's role as heir apparent carried not just personal authority, but constitutional responsibility. Any misstep in tone, timing, or decision could have had far-reaching consequences for the monarchy, public perception, and even government relations. Advisors were likely present to ensure that the discussion, though private, did not result in unintended legal or diplomatic fallout. Every word spoken, every decision made, had to balance personal emotion with institutional consequence. Yet, despite the legal and strategic considerations, the confrontation was fundamentally human. These are two men, brothers, facing the collision of love, loyalty, and duty. William, burdened with responsibility, had to deliver a message that would alter the trajectory of Harry's life forever. Harry, feeling betrayed and constrained, had to absorb the impact and navigate the emotional fallout. The clash of roles, personalities, and expectations made for a volatile and unforgettable encounter. As the discussion reached its peak, emotions likely ran high. Tears, raised voices, or silent frustration, all were possible, though largely shielded from public view. The brothers, for all their public composure, were confronting truths that few outside their family could imagine. The weight of history, expectation, and personal relationship pressed down on them, creating a tension so thick it could be felt across the room. Every participant, from advisors to courtiers, understood the stakes. This was not merely a disagreement. It was a defining moment in the story of a modern monarchy. And then came the turning point. While the specifics remain closely guarded, reports suggest that Harry, in a rare moment of candid emotion, expressed both shock and defiance. His words, though private, are said to have challenged William's decision, questioned the fairness of the process, and underscored the personal pain of exclusion. It is a moment that reveals not just the conflict between brothers, but the broader tension between personal identity and institutional duty. The fallout from that conversation has already begun. Decisions made in that room will shape media narratives, public opinion, and the strategies of both Harry and William for months, if not years, to come. Advisors are working around the clock to anticipate every potential consequence. Media outlets are scouring reports, social media is ablaze with speculation, and the public is left to wonder what truly transpired behind those closed doors. Perhaps most chilling is the realization that this confrontation is only the beginning. The private discussion, intense and dramatic as it may have been, has set the stage for subsequent events that could escalate the tension further. Alliances may shift, strategies may be recalculated, and every move will now be scrutinized through the lens of this pivotal encounter. The royal family, often seen as a bastion of stability, is suddenly a theater of intrigue, emotion, and unpredictable human dynamics. As the world waits for more details, one question looms larger than all others. How will Harry respond to this private confrontation becoming a public reality? How will he navigate life stripped of titles, privileges, and official recognition? And what will be the lasting impact on the relationship between these two brothers, whose bond has been tested by circumstance, expectation, and personal choice? No story about Prince Harry's sudden removal from titles and succession can ignore the name that has become inseparable from his public narrative, Meghan Markle. Whether loved or criticized, she has been both a catalyst and a lightning rod for controversy. Her presence in Harry's life has reshaped public perception, influenced family dynamics, and, according to insiders, played a pivotal role in the decisions that led to this dramatic turning point. Imagine this. A young American actress, accustomed to the glare of Hollywood cameras, enters a world defined by centuries of tradition, ceremony, and protocol. She marries into the British royal family, stepping into an institution that is at once iconic, rigid, and deeply scrutinized. From the outset, Meghan was a figure of fascination for the media, the public, and yes, the family itself. She challenged norms simply by existing in a space that had long been predictable and contained. Every appearance, every statement, every public gesture was dissected. And while the couple projected a united front, the undercurrents of tension were impossible to ignore. By the time William delivered the confirmation stripping Harry of his royal status, Meghan's influence had already been felt for years. Insiders suggest that her assertiveness, ambition, and public-facing strategy clashed with the expectations of palace life. While Harry sought autonomy and a voice independent of the monarchy, Meghan's presence amplified those desires. Together, they became a force that challenged tradition in ways both subtle and overt. Their interviews, media appearances, and business ventures pushed boundaries that had been carefully maintained for generations. But Meghan's role was not simply disruptive, it was also deeply personal. Harry's loyalty to her was unquestionable, and that loyalty shaped many of his decisions. Sources close to the couple indicate that Meghan often acted as a sounding board, strategist, and motivator, guiding Harry toward choices that emphasized independence, public influence, and media visibility. While some within the palace may have interpreted these choices as reckless or confrontational, Harry likely saw them as necessary steps toward personal freedom and self-determination. The tension between William and Meghan, though rarely discussed publicly, is another critical layer in this drama. In the eyes of William and other senior royals, Meghan's influence may have represented a challenge to the cohesion and predictability of the monarchy. Decisions made within this context, the confirmation of Harry's removal from titles and succession, were influenced not just by his actions, but by the broader perception of the couple as a unit. Meghan, therefore, becomes both a symbol and a factor in the unfolding story. Part of the reason the decision was made, and yet, also a participant in a drama that extended far beyond her own control. Media coverage only intensified her role. Every statement, gesture, or appearance by Meghan was interpreted as either a provocation or a justification for Harry's actions. The press narrative, often polarized, painted her alternately as a manipulator, a victim, or a revolutionary figure. These interpretations, while sensationalized, fed directly into the palace's need to assert authority. William's confirmation, in many ways, was also a response to the media storm, a public declaration intended to reassert order, tradition, and clarity in the face of escalating scrutiny. At the same time, Meghan's presence has a humanizing effect. She is not simply a symbol or a disruptor. She is also a mother, a partner, and a figure navigating intense pressure. The emotional toll on her, though largely unseen, is significant. Interviews and accounts suggest that she experienced isolation, stress, and frustration in the months and years leading up to this announcement. Navigating a life in the royal spotlight, while simultaneously facing criticism from both media and family, created an environment of constant tension. Her support for Harry, therefore, was not just a strategic choice. It was also deeply personal, grounded in loyalty, love, and shared struggle. Yet, paradoxically, her influence may have contributed to Harry's public estrangement from the monarchy. Critics argue that her guidance encouraged a level of visibility and independence that clashed with traditional royal expectations. Interviews that revealed private family matters, business deals negotiated without palace oversight, and a willingness to challenge long-standing protocols all contributed to a perception of disruption. In the eyes of the institution, Harry's choices, amplified by Meghan, created a scenario where decisive action was necessary to protect the monarchy's image and authority. The emotional dimension of Meghan's involvement cannot be overstated. Harry's devotion to her was evident in every step he took, every public gesture, and every decision that defied expectation. For him, supporting Meghan was intertwined with asserting his own identity. Yet, this devotion also put him at odds with William, the palace, and centuries of tradition. The resulting tension between personal loyalty and institutional responsibility is at the heart of the current crisis. Observers note that Meghan's influence extends beyond strategy. It also shaped Harry's mindset. Friends and insiders report that she encouraged him to think critically about his role, to assert autonomy, and to challenge boundaries that he might otherwise have accepted. In this way, Meghan became a mirror, reflecting both his desires and his frustrations back at him, giving him the courage to act in ways that were unprecedented for a modern royal. This influence, while empowering, also intensified the stakes. Each decision, each interview, each public appearance now carried the potential for dramatic consequences, including the very announcement William delivered. The confrontation between the brothers, as discussed in the previous chapter, cannot be separated from Meghan's presence in Harry's life. Her guidance, opinions, and emotional support were part of the calculus that led to his decisions. William, aware of this, likely considered her role, consciously or subconsciously. When framing his message, the private conversation was not just a matter of brotherly disagreement. It was a negotiation over influence, authority, and the trajectory of the monarchy itself. At the same time, Meghan's story is one of resilience. Facing scrutiny, criticism, and systemic resistance, she has navigated a world designed to constrain her. Her partnership with Harry has been a bulwark against isolation, a source of strength, and a catalyst for empowerment. Whether one views her as controversial or courageous, her impact on this unfolding drama is undeniable. Without her presence, Harry's actions, and by extension the palace's response, may have looked very different. The public reaction to Meghan's role is equally fascinating. Supporters see her as a figure of modernity, challenging outdated traditions and advocating for autonomy and justice. Critics, however, cast her as a disruptor whose influence over Harry caused instability and controversy. This polarization intensifies the narrative tension, adding a social and cultural layer to the royal drama. It's no longer just about family. It's about perception, influence, and the global conversation surrounding monarchy, tradition, and individual agency. And yet, despite all the analysis, speculation, and media frenzy, one truth remains. Meghan's influence has irrevocably shaped the events leading to this historic moment. Her presence magnified decisions, her counsel guided actions, and her public persona created pressures that the monarchy could not ignore. The confirmation of Harry's removal from royal titles and succession is as much about him as it is about her. A dynamic interplay of loyalty, strategy, and public perception that few outside the palace walls can fully comprehend. But the story does not end here. While Meghan's role is significant, the next revelations involve private communications, palace strategies, and decisions that will escalate the drama even further. Alliances, betrayals, and surprises await, and the consequences of this announcement are only beginning to unfold. When the news of Harry's removal from royal titles and succession hit, the public's reaction was immediate. But inside Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere was far more complex, tense, and emotionally charged. This was not a simple statement or press release. It was a seismic event that touched every corner of the institution, affecting not just the princes, but the entire network of courtiers, advisors, and senior members of the royal inner circle. Imagine the palace in those critical moments. Corridors usually filled with quiet routine suddenly alive with urgency. Courtiers, accustomed to navigating protocol and tradition, were scrambling to adapt. Advisors huddled in private rooms, phones ringing, messages being dispatched to government officials, media strategists, and legal teams. Every word of the public announcement had been scrutinized, every potential reaction anticipated, and yet no one could have predicted the emotional intensity that followed. Inside, the senior staff faced a delicate balancing act. They were charged with upholding the monarchy's dignity while managing the fallout from a situation that was unprecedented in modern history. Every action had consequences. A misstep could be misinterpreted as weakness, betrayal, or incompetence. Every phrase, every gesture, every facial expression became part of the palace narrative. And all of this unfolded under the watchful eyes of a global audience, hungry for insight, scandal, or drama. Courtiers who have served generations of the royal family describe the atmosphere as tense, fragile, and electric. Normally, palace protocol dictates measured, deliberate communication, yet the urgency of the moment demanded swift action. Meetings were convened at all hours. Advisors consulted privately with members of the family, and legal experts analyzed the ramifications of the announcement. It was a flurry of activity, orchestrated to protect the monarchy, while simultaneously responding to a crisis that was unfolding faster than anyone could control. At the heart of the palace's response was an understanding of public perception. Royal advisors knew that the news of Harry's removal would dominate headlines for days, perhaps weeks, and that public opinion could influence both domestic and international relations. As a result, strategies were deployed to manage narrative, reassure the public, and maintain institutional stability. Spokespersons prepared statements, social media monitoring intensified, and media outlets were briefed with selective information to frame the story in a manner favorable to the crown. The personal dimension of the palace reaction cannot be underestimated. Advisors and senior courtiers were acutely aware that this was not just a political maneuver. It was a deeply human drama involving family loyalty, betrayal, and emotional turmoil. Many had observed the brothers' relationship over the years and understood that tensions had been building behind closed doors. Now, those tensions had erupted in a public way, and the palace staff were caught between empathy for the individuals involved and responsibility to the institution. Within this inner circle, debates likely raged over how to handle communication, media inquiries, and internal discussions. Some advisors may have argued for a more measured, private approach, emphasizing the importance of discretion and family privacy. Others likely advocated for transparency and public acknowledgement to prevent rumors from spiraling out of control. The tension between these perspectives added layers of complexity to an already volatile situation. Legal and financial implications were another critical concern. Removing a prince from the line of succession and stripping him of titles involves more than symbolic gestures. It requires meticulous attention to precedent, regulations, and potential challenges. Advisors reviewed historical cases, consulted legal experts, and considered potential ramifications for estates, finances, and official duties. Every detail mattered, because any oversight could result in unintended consequences for the monarchy, both legally and publicly. Behind the scenes, senior staff were also managing emotional fallout. Courtiers who had long served Harry and William were confronted with the human side of this crisis. Loyalty to the family was tested, personal feelings had to be managed, and professional responsibilities demanded objectivity. Witnessing the confrontation between the brothers, the advisors had to remain composed, offering guidance without inflaming tensions or showing bias. It was a tightrope walk between empathy and duty, a balancing act that few outside the palace could ever fully appreciate. Another layer of the palace reaction involved anticipation of Harry's next moves. Advisors understood that he would not accept this situation quietly. Plans were quickly drafted to prepare for potential public statements, interviews, or legal challenges. Contingency measures were discussed for security, media appearances, and official engagements. The palace was bracing not just for immediate impact, but for the prolonged ripple effect that this unprecedented decision would create. At the same time, attention was focused on how other members of the royal family might react. Key figures, from senior cousins to political liaisons, were consulted to assess potential alignments, support, or dissent. The goal was to maintain cohesion and prevent fractures that could further destabilize the monarchy. Every conversation, every meeting, was part of a larger effort to manage both perception and reality. Even the most routine aspects of palace life were disrupted. Schedules were rewritten, ceremonial duties adjusted, and engagements reassessed. Security teams were briefed on potential risks, including heightened media attention and public scrutiny. Staff had to balance operational continuity with crisis management, all while navigating an emotionally charged environment. The ordinary became extraordinary, and every action carried amplified significance. Emotionally, the palace was a microcosm of the larger drama. Staff members reportedly felt a mixture of shock, empathy, and concern. Many had served the family for decades and were intimately familiar with both brothers' personalities and histories. Witnessing the confirmation of Harry's removal and the tense discussions that followed was not just a professional challenge. It was a deeply personal experience. Emotions ran high, but professionalism required that these feelings be managed carefully to maintain stability and prevent leaks or missteps. Meanwhile, media and public speculation created additional pressure. Every insider account, anonymous comment, or subtle observation was analyzed for clues. Royal watchers dissected photographs, scrutinized social media posts, and debated timelines. The palace, in turn, had to anticipate not just immediate reactions, but the narrative trajectory that would shape global perception in the weeks and months to come. Every statement, every movement, every glance would be interpreted and repurposed, demanding constant vigilance and strategic foresight. It was in this high-stakes environment that the monarchy's resilience was tested. Advisors had to navigate the dual pressures of human emotion and institutional responsibility. Courtiers had to reconcile loyalty to the family with professional obligations. Legal experts had to ensure that decisions were airtight, historically sound, and defensible. Media strategists had to frame the story in a way that reinforced the monarchy's authority while mitigating potential backlash. The result was a complex, multi-layered response that required coordination, discretion, and emotional intelligence. And yet, despite all these efforts, one fact remained undeniable. The confirmation of Harry's removal was only the beginning. The palace reaction set the stage for what would come next. Private meetings, strategic countermoves, and decisions that could redefine the monarchy for years to come. Every advisor, every courtier, every senior staff member knew that the ripple effects would be profound and long-lasting. But perhaps the most compelling aspect of this chapter is the tension between personal loyalty and professional duty. Staff members, long accustomed to mediating conflicts and managing sensitive situations, now faced a scenario that tested the limits of both. Supporting William's decision while remaining empathetic to Harry's position was a delicate balance. Missteps could result in leaks, media misrepresentation, or even public backlash, yet failing to act decisively could undermine the monarchy itself. As the palace worked behind closed doors to manage the crisis, questions about future actions loomed. How would Harry respond publicly? Would Meghan play a more visible role? Could reconciliation between the brothers ever occur, or had this confirmation created a permanent rift? The answers were unclear, but one thing was certain. The inner workings of Buckingham Palace had become the epicenter of a drama that would capture the world's attention. And the most shocking development of all? Behind closed doors, whispers of additional revelations were already circulating, secrets that could expose even deeper fractures within the royal family. Courtiers hinted at undisclosed communications, legal considerations, and private decisions that, if revealed, would escalate the drama far beyond anything the public had witnessed so far. The palace, while maintaining outward composure, was a powder keg of strategy, emotion, and intrigue. What comes next will not just affect Harry and William. It will shape the monarchy, influence public opinion, and create a narrative that could dominate headlines for years. The moment Prince William's confirmation of Harry's removal hit the press, a tidal wave of media frenzy swept across the globe. Newspapers, television channels, online outlets, and social media platforms erupted simultaneously, each competing to provide the latest details, speculate on hidden motives, and capture every nuance of this historic royal drama. It was a media storm unlike any the monarchy had faced in recent history. The headlines were instant, dramatic, and inescapable. Prince Harry stripped of royal titles ran across front pages in London, New York, Paris, and Sydney. Social media exploded with trending hashtags, heated debates, memes, and viral video clips. Every outlet had its angle, some emphasizing betrayal, others focusing on Harry as a victim, while still others debated Meghan's influence. In just minutes, the story had crossed oceans, reaching millions of people worldwide who were eager to consume, comment, and speculate. The speed and intensity of the coverage were staggering. In the digital age, news travels at the speed of a click, but even by those standards, this story moved faster than most could process. Within seconds, journalists were live on air providing analysis, pundits were offering opinions, and influencers were weighing in on social media. Every camera, microphone, and smartphone became a lens through which the world interpreted the unfolding drama. The palace, experienced in managing royal communications, suddenly faced a situation where control was almost impossible. One of the most striking aspects of the media reaction was its polarization. Social media threads divided sharply between supporters and critics of Harry. Loyalists expressed shock and sadness, lamenting the loss of a beloved prince from the royal fold. Critics argued that his actions, amplified by media appearances and public statements, had made this removal inevitable. Memes circulated depicting Harry in a variety of ways, as both rebel and victim, as courageous or reckless. The global conversation became a mixture of outrage, fascination, and analysis, with few remaining neutral. Traditional media played a particularly powerful role. Newspapers dissected every statement, analyzed the implications of the removal, and explored historical precedents. Television channels broadcast live panels, inviting experts on monarchy, constitutional law, and media relations to discuss the consequences. Every angle, from legal ramifications to personal relationships, was explored in detail. Analysts debated not only what this meant for Harry, but also what it signified for the monarchy, the crown, and even global perceptions of British tradition. Social media added another dimension entirely. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok became arenas for public expression, speculation, and outrage. Influencers, celebrities, and ordinary users weighed in, generating viral content that spread across countries and cultures. Discussions about loyalty, family dynamics, tradition, and modernity flooded feeds. Every opinion, every post, every comment contributed to a narrative that was both immediate and evolving, a narrative that even the palace struggled to influence. The public reaction, while intense, was also deeply personal for many. Millions of people around the world felt a connection to the story because it involved universal themes: family conflict, loyalty, betrayal, and identity. Harry's removal from titles resonated as more than just royal news. It was a human drama playing out on a global stage. People saw themselves in these struggles: siblings, parents, and children navigating complicated relationships, loyalty, and authority. The monarchy, in this moment, became a mirror reflecting personal experiences and societal tensions alike. The media storm was also fueled by speculation and rumor. Every prior interview, public appearance, and social media post was revisited with new scrutiny. Analysts searched for hidden meanings, reading between the lines of previous statements to predict Harry's next move. Meghan's role was dissected repeatedly, with commentators debating her influence, her intentions, and her impact on Harry's decisions. The palace's communication team had to monitor every rumor, correct inaccuracies, and attempt to manage a narrative that was evolving faster than they could control. Global reaction was immediate and varied. In Europe, commentators compared this unprecedented move to historical moments of royal family conflict, drawing parallels with past abdications, scandals, and family rifts. In the United States, the story dominated cable news and social media, framing Harry as a modern-day rebel navigating tradition and expectation. In Asia, Africa, and Australia, audiences engaged with the story both as a cultural phenomenon and as an insight into one of the world's most enduring institutions. The reach and resonance of the story were unprecedented, underscoring the global fascination with the British monarchy. The speed at which the story spread created new challenges. Palace communications teams had to work around the clock, monitoring social media, advising senior royals, and coordinating public statements. Every photograph, video clip, or quote could be amplified globally within minutes. Misinterpretations or inaccuracies had the potential to fuel further speculation, adding to the complexity of managing public perception. In this environment, control was tenuous, and every decision had to be weighed carefully. Even within media outlets, tension was high. Editors, reporters, and correspondents raced to break new details, conduct interviews, and analyze implications. The story demanded constant updates, and every detail was scrutinized for accuracy and impact. Analysts debated the legal ramifications, historical precedents, and emotional consequences. Public relations experts speculated about potential next moves, while cultural commentators discussed the broader significance of Harry's removal. The story had become a multi-layered spectacle, both dramatic and deeply consequential. The narrative was also shaped by the juxtaposition of private and public realities. While the palace worked behind closed doors to manage the situation, the world consumed a carefully constructed narrative: the brothers' rift, Harry's removal, and Meghan's influence. The contrast between the private reality, complex, emotional, and multifaceted, and the public narrative, simplified, sensationalized, and dramatic, created tension and curiosity that kept audiences engaged. People wanted to know more, to understand the human motivations behind these headline-grabbing events. The media storm also had tangible consequences for Harry. Public perception shapes opportunity, influence, and access, and every story contributed to the evolving narrative of his identity. Stripped of titles, Harry now faced the challenge of navigating a public life without the framework of official recognition, while managing scrutiny and expectations. His every move would be magnified, dissected, and interpreted, a pressure amplified exponentially by global attention. At the same time, William's public image was both reinforced and challenged by the media storm. By confirming Harry's removal, he positioned himself as the protector of tradition, the steward of the monarchy, and the enforcer of continuity. Yet he also faced criticism from those who viewed the move as harsh, punitive, or emotionally detached. Every statement, every gesture, and every calculated move had to be carefully crafted to maintain authority while managing empathy and perception. And yet, despite the chaos, one truth became clear: the media storm was only beginning. Every reaction, every article, every social media post was a building block in a narrative that would evolve over months, even years. Analysts speculated on potential reconciliations, public statements, legal challenges, and the long-term implications for the monarchy. Every new development was scrutinized, debated, and repurposed, creating a feedback loop that intensified public engagement and anticipation. The global fascination with this story underscores a universal theme. The human drama behind privilege, family, and power resonates across cultures. The monarchy, often perceived as distant and ceremonial, suddenly became deeply relatable, offering a lens through which audiences could explore issues of loyalty, conflict, and personal identity. Harry's removal, though shocking, was also compelling, inviting viewers to reflect on their own relationships, choices, and boundaries. And as the media storm continues to grow, one question remains. What will Harry's next move be in the face of unprecedented public scrutiny? How will he respond to the combination of familial disappointment, institutional authority, and global attention? The answer is unknown, but one thing is certain: the story is far from over. The media storm, while chaotic and relentless, is setting the stage for revelations, confrontations, and decisions that will change the royal narrative forever. Beneath the polished facade of Buckingham Palace, behind the pomp, ceremony, and endless protocol, lies a network of relationships far more complex than the public can ever imagine. The announcement of Harry's removal from royal titles and succession did more than shock the public. It rippled through the royal family itself, forcing members, allies, and advisors to take sides, recalibrate loyalties, and confront long-standing tensions. The family, once outwardly united, was suddenly revealed to be a network of alliances and adversaries, each with their own stakes in the unfolding drama. The first shockwaves were felt among the immediate royal family. Kate Middleton, now firmly established as the Duchess of Cambridge and future Queen Consort, reportedly played a subtle but significant role in supporting William's decision. While she remained a figure of discretion in public, insiders suggest that she provided emotional reinforcement, counsel, and strategic guidance during the tense family discussions. Her presence, though understated, symbolized a stabilizing force, reinforcing William's position as heir apparent while navigating the personal and political intricacies of this historic decision. Prince Charles, meanwhile, found himself in a delicate position. The king-in-waiting had always been conscious of the balance between family and monarchy, duty and personal loyalty. Reports indicate that Charles was deeply involved in discussions, weighing not just the immediate consequences for Harry and William, but also the long-term implications for the crown. His input, though measured, reflected the dual pressures of ensuring institutional continuity while managing deeply personal relationships. Every word, every gesture, every glance from Charles was interpreted as both guidance and expectation, a reflection of the immense responsibility carried by the monarchy's senior-most member. Princess Anne, known for her blunt honesty and forthright demeanor, reportedly offered candid perspectives during private deliberations. Sources suggest that she emphasized accountability, tradition, and the importance of maintaining cohesion within the family. Yet her loyalty to both brothers created a nuanced position. While she supported the institution's authority, she also reportedly sought to mitigate personal harm, urging for careful consideration of Harry's emotional well-being. Anne's role highlights the tension between family duty and institutional responsibility, a balancing act that has defined the monarchy for generations. Beyond the immediate family, cousins, uncles, and senior advisors were forced to reassess their allegiances. Some viewed Harry's actions as a direct challenge to tradition and hierarchy, prompting them to support William's decisive move. Others, perhaps influenced by personal relationships, public perception, or private empathy, leaned toward Harry, questioning whether the removal of titles and succession rights was the most measured response. These divides, subtle yet significant, illustrate that the royal family is not a monolith but a complex web of personalities, loyalties, and hidden dynamics. Allies within the palace were equally divided. Senior advisors, long accustomed to managing crises, were suddenly navigating uncharted territory. Some supported William's decision unequivocally, emphasizing the need to protect the monarchy's integrity, public image, and authority. Others expressed concern, advocating for reconciliation, measured communication, and strategies to minimize emotional fallout. These internal debates shaped messaging, influenced strategic decisions, and added layers of complexity to an already volatile situation. The rift also extended to Harry and Meghan's circle. While Meghan's influence on Harry's decisions was clear, insiders report that her own advisors and allies were engaged in parallel discussions, offering guidance on media strategy, public perception, and legal considerations. The couple's team, though operating independently of the palace, was acutely aware of the unfolding drama, positioning themselves to navigate the storm in ways that protected both personal and public interests. This network of support added another layer of tension: the palace versus the outside advisors, family versus independent counsel, tradition versus autonomy. Historical context deepened the significance of these divides. The British monarchy has always operated at the intersection of personal relationships and public responsibility. Decisions made within the family ripple outward, shaping not just internal dynamics, but public perception, international relations, and institutional legacy. Harry's removal is not just a personal event. It is a moment in the ongoing narrative of monarchy, reflecting centuries of tension between duty, tradition, and individuality. The divisions revealed in this moment are emblematic of larger challenges facing the institution. Emotional complexity intensified the stakes. Family members, while strategizing and navigating alliances, were also grappling with personal feelings of disappointment, betrayal, and loyalty. Siblings who had shared childhoods, cousins who had grown up together, and advisors who had served for decades were suddenly negotiating the delicate balance between affection and responsibility. The personal consequences of public actions became unavoidable, creating tension that was at once private and highly consequential.